Yes, sir. Michael, would you like to start? Any particular question or point or comment?
Comment.
Go ahead. You first came here about 10 years ago?
8 years ago.
8 years ago. Yeah.
So I should start at the beginning, I think.
I'm sorry?
I think I should begin my words with the beginning.
Yes, I agree. Go ahead. Go ahead, Michael. Go ahead.
Because
I know when you came here, there was peculiar circumstances. That I remember.
Yeah. And I remember I came here. I've often told people this since then in America and elsewhere that when I first came to India, I found the teacher that I wasn't looking for. I didn't come here seeking a guru or on a significant spiritual quest because I didn't know what that was.
Yes.
I didn't know what that entailed. It wasn't a part of my tradition.
Yes.
It wasn't my
But what brought
history.
you to me anyway?
A friend, my father had died, and
Yes,
I was grieving over his death, and he had said before he died that I should follow my heart, and if I wanted to go to Asia, I should go to Asia.
Yes.
In particular, he said Tibet at the time, and I thought India would be a good entry point in going to Tibet.
Yes.
So I came here for that reason, but just before coming, I met someone who had been here.
I see.
And said, I told this person I was going to be traveling.
He's the one whom we're talking about. He knew your circumstances.
Yes.
I see.
Relatively.
But he's knew
it was
that
she actually. It was a she, and
she was troubled.
She was not.
I mean, she saw you troubled.
No.
She
saw me. She saw me grieving my father's death, and she saw me wanting to come to India, and she also saw that I was coming very naively because I had never been here before.
Yes.
I had lived and worked in Europe, but I had never been to the East.
Yes.
And I wasn't carrying a Lonely Planet guide with me. I didn't have any plan for India.
Yeah.
And she said, I know this person who teaches in Bombay. Why don't you go there your first couple of days and you can meet other Westerners who can show you how to travel around India and give you ideas of where to go and places to stay. She really sent me here to meet people, not to meet you.
I understand. Yeah.
And I remember the first day that I came, it was very crowded in this room. I was in the other room. It was standing room only, but there was one seat available directly in front of you, and I thought, my great good luck, I could sit. I didn't know it was a hot seat, which is pretty typical of me not to know. And I sat here, and I remember you came in and you sat down. First you turned away, and then you sat down and turned around. And you looked right at me and you said something like, so would you call yourself a spiritual seeker? I think those were the first words out of your mouth.
Yes.
And I'd never heard this question before.
I see, yeah.
And you said, what are you seeking? And I hadn't heard any of the talks, so I didn't know.
I understand,
that people are seeking enlightenment or whatever they were seeking. And I remember my response to you then was that if I was seeking something, it was relief from pain and the suffering in my own life.
Yes, I see.
And then the other day when that fellow was here with his mother, Shalini's son, who came from America and was expressing deep depression and being at near suicide, I realized that when I came to India that first time, I was like at the end of my rope. I had gone through a lot of difficult circumstances. I had been injured in a bad accident. And
that's what I remember. You had very difficult
I had lost a business that was thriving and was very glamorous and interesting, and it was just a whole series of things that happened that left me pondering some of the questions of life.
Yeah. What is life all about?
Yeah, and why am I suffering?
Yeah.
And you asked me all the right questions, because
Oh, yes.
you did.
There are some right questions and wrong questions, Michael.
In my experience of you, the questions have always been right.
Fitted your circumstances.
Yeah, you've been very accurate with me.
Yes.
And one of the questions you frequently ask is, when did this spiritual seeking, after you spoke to me about what seeking is and so forth in that first meeting, you asked me, when did I think this first began in me?
Yes,
And
yes.
I said, I actually thought it began in fairly early childhood. And it was also around painful incidents
Yes.
that caused me to think there must be something else.
Yes.
I
Yes.
was a very early child,
Yes.
And the other day when you were talking, you said something about how the basis of, I wrote it down, the basis of human unhappiness stems from rivalry and
Yes.
suspicion,
Yes.
which comes from childhood
Sibling
experiences.
rivalry.
Sibling rivalry. you
Yeah.
said. And you also said that, and maybe I didn't write this down correctly, maybe I didn't hear it correctly, but I think you also said that God did not intend for any of us to be unhappy.
I'm sorry?
I think you also said, I wrote it down, but I may have gotten this wrong.
Yeah.
That God does not intend for anyone to be unhappy.
No, what happened was, I came to the conclusion that this begins with sibling rivalry. It's almost human nature to treat the other as a rival. It's almost human nature if it begins with little brothers and sisters. And that is the cause of the human unhappiness. Therefore I decided that, remember, what was I seeking, Michael? I was seeking happiness. Make no mistake. I was seeking happiness.
But were you seeking happiness as a relief from your suffering?
No, I wasn't.
No, so it was separate from that.
That is the whole point.
And that's the difference between us.
Yeah, oh, indeed. And that was the same with Kunal you were referring to there.
Yeah.
So he kept on saying, I said, no. Pain or pleasure happens in the flow of life, over which no human being has any control. Whereas the unhappiness is what I create for myself. You can only create pain for me. You can only create pain for me as part of living from flow of life. But you as the other have no power to create unhappiness for me. Unhappiness is what I create for myself. Therefore, I say, the unhappiness I am seeking is totally different from the pain, which is the opposite of pleasure. That is the most important point. Therefore, I said, the most important conclusion to come to is that the happiness I am seeking is not to be found in the flow of life. Flow of life means pleasure or pain over which I have no control. Therefore, I have to accept the pain. So the happiness I am seeking is not to be found in the flow of life, but in my attitude to life. I said that is the most important conclusion to come to. Pain or pleasure, I have no control. Therefore, seeking more pleasure, seeking less pain is futile. You see my point?
Yeah.
It is already predetermined. The movie is in the can. But the point is, therefore, most important, the happiness I am seeking is not to be found in the flow of life, because flow of life can only mean pleasure or pain over which I have no control. Anyone is capable of paining, doing something which could hurt me, over which I have no control. Therefore, the most important, I repeat, is to come to the firm, undeniable conclusion that the happiness I am seeking is not to be found in the flow of life. Therefore, what can I do? What can someone else do to bring me happiness or remove my unhappiness? Futile. Therefore, the most important conclusion is the happiness I am seeking is not to be found in the flow of life. Therefore, where is it to be found? And the only answer that I could give, that's in my attitude to life.
Outside the flow of life.
That is totally outside the flow of life. My attitude to life.
And so then was I correct in saying, writing and saying that God does not intend you to be unhappy? And the reason you said that...
Wait a minute. No. I said God does not intend me to be happy.
Does not intend you to be happy.
Because I found, even among little brothers and sisters, there is rivalry.
Yeah.
And the basis of my unhappiness is rivalry.
But the happiness that you were seeking that comes outside of this flow of life that occurs between pain and happiness, that is in the realm of God's intention for all to be
No. Two are quite separate. I decided the happiness I am seeking is not to be found in the flow of life.
So, but it was somewhere outside the flow of life. And
outside the flow of life.
My question is where?
My attitude to life.
Just the attitude.
My attitude to life, which brings me happiness or unhappiness. You, the other, are not concerned. Whereas the pain or pleasure, you are very much concerned. You are very much concerned. And therefore, I decided you were the one who hurt me. Therefore, I hated you. The whole understanding now is everything is happening according to God's will, cosmic law. How each happening affects whom? A happening affects, which may hurt me, it may help you. Or it may hurt you and help someone else, over which no human being has any control. That also is according to God's will, cosmic law. And through which body, mind, organism the happening happens, which the society considers your action or my action or his action, and rewards me or punishes you, is also according to God's will, cosmic law. The human being is incapable of doing anything. Human being is incapable of doing anything. Therefore, I come to the conclusion, stupid to hate Michael for something which I thought he did to hurt me.
And this is why I'm sitting here today, because another reason why I was here 8 years ago is because I was blaming others.
That is the point. And that is what made you truly unhappy, not the pain, as separate from pain.
And I can't begin to tell you the level of blame that I was hurling at others.
Oh, I can easily understand that.
And one of them, and that's why I was touched by this mother and son who were here the other day, was towards my mother. You know, I was blaming her for incidents in my childhood. And then that particular year that I was here 8 years ago, while I was here, my mother had an accident in America, and I had to return to America, and I discovered that she had Alzheimer's disease as well. And so
she had?
Yes, and so the last 8 years I've had to care for her with Alzheimer's disease. And it has been a very painful experience watching her devolve and fall apart. But I took that teaching that you gave me that time that I was here the very first time, and when she was first coming down with Alzheimer's, I told myself, I'm not going to let you, go on in your life without my confronting you about all these complaints I have about you from my childhood. you know.
So you told her.
So I sat her down, you know, and I
But with Alzheimer's disease, she probably didn't know what
she
you're
was just
talking
beginning
about.
to have Alzheimer's, and she did know what I was talking about. That's just
Oh, she
it.
did know.
And she said, I'll never forget what she said. You know, I laid it all out. You know, these are all the wrongs you did against
Yes,
me. You know,
yes.
and when I was finished, she looked at me and she said, "You're right. I did all those things, and I'm sorry for it. But I couldn't help myself." She said, "I couldn't help it. I would do these things. I didn't even know why I was doing it."
That is the whole point.
And it took all the burden away. You know,
That is the whole
my
point.
unhappiness and anger towards her completely melted away at that point in time. And I could have walked away from her. I could have said, "I'm not going to deal with your Alzheimer's disease." I could have just walked away. But instead, you know, it was like we found our peace together. You know,
Yeah,
and there were a lot of gifts in
you
this period of
found your
time.
peace together by accepting. She
Couldn't
cannot-
help herself.
She cannot hurt you, even if she wanted to hurt
Yeah.
you. I'll go to the other extreme. She says she didn't mean to hurt you. What I'm saying, even if she did mean to hurt you, if it were not your destiny to be hurt, no power on earth can hurt you.
Yeah,
You see what I mean?
I do.
Therefore, that is the whole point. And what is my unhappiness? What is the basis of my unhappiness? The load of hatred for others who hurt me, including my mother or a stranger. And the other way around, an enormous load of hatred for myself through guilt and shame for people whom I have hurt.
And the problem with that kind of hatred is that it carries over. If you hate one person, you start judging and criticizing, and
That is
a
the
kind of hatred goes out towards others as well, and you start seeing the whole world
Yes.
through those kinds of eyes. And
Therefore, Michael, I say, I pursued happiness, and I came to the conclusion that I was not happy because I kept judging people, including myself and the other. Judging people and condemning people, including myself and the other. That is why I am unhappy. Therefore, I said, the basis of the understanding, the basis of enlightenment as far as I am concerned, according to my concept, the basis of total basis of understanding, the basis of the understanding, whatever you call it, self-realization or whatever you call it, the basis of it is nobody has the power to do anything. Why? Because fundamentally, every human being is only a three-dimensional object. How can a three-dimensional object help someone or hurt someone? Fundamentally, how can a three-dimensional object help someone or hurt someone? Therefore, in life, if someone is hurt or someone is hurt, then the action which helps someone or hurts someone is not the action of the three-dimensional object, but a happening brought about by the source of God or energy or consciousness through the three-dimensional object.
it's not the deliberate intention of the three-dimensional object, it's just happening through the three-dimensional object.
And what I am saying is that first, the three-dimensional object cannot have an intention. How can a three-dimensional object have an intention to help someone or harm someone? It's a three-dimensional object. So who has this intention of helping or someone? That is the ego. And what is the ego? Impersonal consciousness identified with each particular human object as a separate entity with a sense of personal doership. Why has the ego been created? Because unless the ego was created as a separate entity, feeling me and the other, with a sense of personal doership, daily living as we know it could not have happened. Therefore, for daily living as we know it to happen, God was forced to create every human being as a separate entity with a sense of personal doership. That is the ego. And therefore also, God was forced to give every ego the sense of total free will. You and I, or the psychopath, every single human being does have total free will to do anything I want. But God said you have the free will to do whatever you want. But you have no control over the result of what you consider your action. You are free to consider it your action. What really happens is, I work through that three-dimensional object. I work through that and create a happening which you are free to consider your action or the other's action. But that free will is in effect worthless. Therefore, you do have free will, but it's worthless in practice. That is everybody's experience, which people do not give enough attention to. Therefore I said to myself, let me find. That is quite clear, everybody's experience. I do have free will, but it's worthless in practice. So I said, let me find out if at least in theory it has some value. And I came to the stunning conclusion that the free will I'm supposed to have is based only on two factors, no third factor, my genes and my conditioning. Both factors infused by the source of God in every body, mind, organism. And my free will is based on those two factors, my genes and my conditioning, which God infused in this body, mind, organism. So that whatever I think and do is based on these two factors over which I have no control. Therefore, both in theory and practice, it's a fact that while I think I have total free will, both in theory and practice, my free will is worthless. So, I said, if what I am doing is based on two factors which God infused in this, how can I say it's my action? Whatever I thought about my action, whatever I've been doing all my life, which I thought were my actions, on this basis turns out to be God's actions functioning through this body-mind organism. God's actions functioning through this three-dimensional object, which God made me think were my actions, so that daily living could happen. So the most stunning conclusion I came to, where religion was concerned, I am free to do whatever I want, but it is based on two factors over which I have no control. Therefore, how can I ever commit a sin? Any action that I have been doing at any time in my life is based on two factors which God infused in this three-dimensional object. Therefore, how can a three-dimensional object ever commit a sin? Therefore, no human being, normal or abnormal, normal or a psychopath, no one can commit a sin, for the simple reason that everyone is a three-dimensional object through which the source of God or consciousness or energy functions and brings about whatever is supposed to happen. So I came to the conclusion, my search for happiness is stupid. God never intended me to be happy. Therefore, I honestly, most humbly, gave up the search for happiness. Happiness just doesn't exist. God doesn't want any human being to be happy. That was the conclusion I arrived at. And I surrendered my intellect. And after I had surrendered my intellect, then came the answer to me from outside, from God, from consciousness, whatever you call it. He said, you're wrong. I never intended a human being, my never intention for any human being to be unhappy. On the contrary, I expect every human being to be happy. But that is based on one factor, and that is that you totally accept my power. My happiness depends only if I am able to accept thy will be done. My happiness depends only to the extent that I accept thy will be done. The Hindus say, thou art the doer, thou art the experiencer. But that the human being is not prepared to do. The only way that the human being can be happy is if they surrender their sense of personal doership, which I have infused in this three-dimensional object, and the ego realizes that a three-dimensional object cannot have any freedom to do anything. Realization, the ego is supposed to be happy only those egos who realize that they are not the doers. Nobody can be a doer. Then that ego who accepts thy will be done will be happy. But most people are not prepared to give up their sense of personal doership. How do I live my life if I'm not the doer? So the human being is unhappy because the human being is not prepared to surrender his sense of personal doership. All that the human being has to do to be happy is to surrender his sense of personal doership. And then what happens? Then no more load of guilt and shame for my action, no more load of hatred for you, the other. And the absence of this load of hatred for myself and hatred for me is itself the happiness you are seeking.
Well, I know that what I'm saying is very personal and is stemming from my ego. It's egoic, what I'm saying. But
say that again, please.
I know that what I'm saying is very personal and it's stemming from my ego, from my egoic experience.
No, that's where you're wrong, Michael. That's where you're fundamentally wrong. You, Michael, are the ego. Who can have an ego? Can a three-dimensional object have an ego? The three-dimensional object is the ego, because God has infused in that three-dimensional object life and the sense of separateness with a sense of personal doership.
But that I am talking to you is an expression of my ego because I am a three-dimensional object.
Therefore, what is happening, Michael? One ego is talking to another ego.
Yes. But really, it's
one ego is talking to another ego.
Really, it's the source is doing all the conversing.
That is correct.
So what I'm trying to get at is this story of my relationship with you began 8 years ago.
Yes.
And this conversation you had with this couple that was here, the mother and the son,
yes,
brought out something in me. And
yes,
then yesterday when you got up to leave and I was standing there, you made a point of greeting me and asking me how I felt, and I remember responding.
Let me confess, It was a purely matter of courtesy.
I know it was, and I didn't make anything more of
Yeah,
it than that,
yeah.
but it felt good to hear it.
Oh, I can imagine.
And I left here and I had a variety of things that I needed to do. And in order for me to come to see you every year, or the years that I've been able to come, I am the volunteer director of a charity organization in Bihar, in a very rugged part of India where it's quite dangerous to work.
I remember that too.
And I don't do it out of idealism or because I'm trying to save the world or be kind to untouchable children. My primary reason for going there is because it allows me to route my trips through Bombay to see you. So it's a hard way to get here, because otherwise I couldn't afford on my own.
You mean you get your expenses?
Yes.
Because you are doing that work.
Yes,
I see.
Yes. I contribute my time as the volunteer director of this program, and in exchange, I have flights here and Africa, and also into northern India, and dealing with this program, so forth.
Yeah.
And
but tell me, this program that you are doing, does it not provide you with a tremendous sense of satisfaction? Or do you think that is the only way I can get my expenses?
Well, it's not the only way. I have to deal with a lot of Bihari mafia people.
Oh, so it's dangerous.
On a daily basis, and so there are a lot of threats and dangers involved. However, the children that get the benefits, that does give me quite a bit of pleasure.
That is
and
the
to
point.
see the ethics in which they are being raised now changed. It has had some value to me, and then also I have felt as though many talents that I had never really expressed in my life, I knew I had them, but they weren't put to use in my work life in America. They get put to use up there. Talents that I developed when I was younger, and also talents I didn't know that I had. And that I'm very grateful for. I've done things there that I didn't think I was capable of doing.
And seeing those few, however few they are, seeing the life totally change, what they could have been and what they are now having, surely it must give a tremendous sense of satisfaction.
Most of the children that we have are untouchables, and in that particular region, they're not allowed to go into certain establishments. They can't go into an internet cafe, or they can't go into a restaurant. They're barred, they're blocked, And this year we started a little computer center.
And that,
to see these children learning how to use a computer was just a remarkable thing to experience.
And don't forget, this is the result of what? This is the result of Hindu religion.
Yeah.
Make no mistake. The Hindu religion which tells me to remember, thou art the doer, thou art the experiencer. Same religion tells me you must keep this. I am a Brahmin. You can't. You touch something, you can't eat it. That kind of a thing. Who has done it? My religion.
Yeah.
That is why, Michael, the book came out, a personal religion of your own, to hell with the religions. The basis of every religion, people are not prepared to accept. The basis of every religion, thy will be done. Nothing can happen unless it is the will of God. The three-dimensional object cannot do anything. That is the basis of every religion. But the human being has thrown out the religions. Therefore I tell you, forget the religion. They have done enough harm already. And they will do as much harm as they are supposed to do according to God's will, cosmic law. As far as the individual is concerned, my happiness depends on my accepting a religion which I consider my personal religion, based on what I talk about.
But I didn't come here to speak about the work in Bihar. I was relating that to you because when I left here after we spoke just briefly, I in good and normal spirits. My response to you when you asked me how I was I said I felt good, well, and I did, and I do. And I went out and walked on the streets here a little bit, and for some reason I saw a child on the street, and I bought some flowers, and I took them back to my hotel room, and then I had to write some reports back to the parent foundation in America about the work being done in Bihar. And when I got on the internet, I only had 2 emails, and it wasn't related to the work that I was doing. It was from 2 friends of mine in America, and they were both informing me that my mother died yesterday.
Oh. I had an impression that she was dead, or she was still suffering from Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. So that again, what is death, Michael? Death is a relief from life. Death fundamentally is what? Is a relief from life. And Ramana Maharshi, he said, the man of understanding is never afraid of, or the man of understanding is always willing, ready to die. Like a laborer, at the end of the day, is ready to leave his load down. That's Ramana Maharshi. The man of understanding is ready to die any minute, like a laborer at the end of the day, happy to leave the load down, put the load down. Therefore, whatever else is in it, no mistake, death is freedom from life.
Thank you for saying that.
So, make no mistake. Now, you will say, it's freedom from life if life is a misery, like your mother's. Or someone else, cancer or Alzheimer's disease or whatever. But what I'm saying is, death is freedom from life anyway. You know, many years ago, there was George Sanders, an actor. I don't know whether you know him. Brilliant actor. Excellent, very handsome face, handsome figure. On paper, you can't expect anyone for a major hero role. But his destiny was, he never did succeed as a hero. But he was a brilliant actor. So, while the main names came and went, George Sanders was there all the time, top of other characters. George Sanders. So he was a very wealthy actor. And he committed suicide. You know why? In the suicide note, he said, no one is to be blamed. I'm committing suicide because I'm bored with life. What he meant was, I'm a handsome man, I'm healthy, I have money, I can enjoy any pleasure life offers me. And that's what I've done. And now I'm bored. I've enjoyed every kind of pleasure, but now I'm bored. So he committed suicide. So therefore, death means freedom from life, not only of pain, freedom even from pleasure. Therefore, death is freedom from life, whether life has on the whole meant pleasure or pain. Like a laborer at the end of the day, ready to put down his load.
It was always one of my greatest worries in coming here that she would die while I was away. And yet when I got this news yesterday, India seemed like the right place to be.
But believe, that is the point. Freedom, in her case, all the more so.
Yeah.
Freedom for her, freedom from the misery of life. For her, freedom from the misery of life. And yet, there are people who live. Actually, you know my brother Chetan, who lives next door, his wife's uncle. I visited him, he was 100 years old. So on his 100th birthday, I visited him. So he said, you have come? You have come? Then we talked, and he died 10 days later. Perfectly normal, no big pain, no big pleasure, perfectly normal. And yet, he wasn't sorry to die. So that means freedom from life, whatever the life has been. Pain, pleasure, or a mixture of both.
Well, I guess I'm sitting here just because I wanted to express my thanks to you, because if I hadn't seemingly inadvertently come here 8 years ago without any real intention.
Michael, who is thanking whom for what?
I feel gratitude, let's say.
Gratitude arises.
Yeah.
Gratitude arises and can make you do whatever, do for me, whatever is my destiny to get from you. Gratitude arises. And that is what the mother, she was in tears. For her, so she had a tremendous upsurge of gratitude. Gratitude, and that I know from my own personal experience. This was Nisarga that time. To tell you the truth, I had the understanding even before I went. But still, what he said was confirmation. There was a tremendous surge of gratitude. And that was the only time I wished I had more money, so that I already gave him a fairly generous amount, which he thought even more generous. But I wished that the only time I wished I had more money, so that I could give him more donations. So I know what you're talking about from personal experience. Gratitude arises. And what that gratitude makes you do is your destiny and the destiny of someone who is concerned. Even over that, nobody has anything.
But at least it's there.
It's there, yeah.
Whereas before it might have been there, but I didn't have an awareness of it.
No, you thought it was there.
Yeah.
Now you know it's come out.
Yeah.
Previously you thought you were grateful to me. Now gratitude has arisen.
Yeah. No doubt.
That's an accurate description.
Very accurate. And I apologize for all the I apologize for all the headaches I've given you.
No, honestly, Michael, the more headache someone thinks he is giving me, I'm honestly grateful to him. If I didn't have such questions, what do I talk about? What do I talk about? Something that you are given is the basis upon which I talk. Therefore, when Murthy tells me someone new has come, I said, good. Make no mistake. And that's another point. People say, it's remarkable, Ramesh, what patience you show to people. Then I said, do you know, my basic nature, my genes, impatience is a part of my genes. Impatience. In fact, I remember when I was a kid, yes, calm down. Take it easy. So impatience is part of my gene. But when the stalking takes place, so much patience. Why? So much patience. When the stalk goes on, I am not doing the talking. If I were doing the talking, impatience would have been very much apparent. That itself proved that I know I'm not doing the talking. That's why so much patience happens.
And it's also not given to you or me to know the reason behind why the talking takes place. I mean, that's the source knowing all, right? This object.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
It's that, implied in what you just said is that there must be some reason why this is taking place, but there's no way for us to know. That is only unto the will of God to know. And that's also part of...
Therefore, people who come here, they don't come here. They are brought here. At this moment, you couldn't have been anywhere else but here. That is why again and again, the spiritual seeker did not choose to be a spiritual seeker. The psychopath didn't choose to be a psychopath. Everything is a happening which is supposed to happen. And if the spiritual seeker remembers this deeply, then the spiritual seeker will not be proud of being a spiritual seeker. Okay? Yes, sir. Your name is?
Eric.
Eric.
Yes.
What part of the world are you from?
San Francisco, California. San Francisco, California. San Francisco.
I see.
In the U.S.
Yes, I see. Yes.
This is my first time in India. I went to an ashram in November in Nayar Dam in Kerala.
I see.
And first I really heard about Advaita.
I see.
And but I went there to learn yoga, and I'm learning a lot more than that right now.
I see.
And then I was in Mysore, and I met a couple who told me about you, and I just decided to come by yesterday because I was in town.
I see.
So.
So you're interested in Advaita?
Uh-huh.
To what extent are you interested in Advaita? What have you read? Whom have you met? And what is your understanding of Advaita?
Whew.
Eric, what is your understanding of Advaita?
Well, it's all pretty new.
Wait a minute. You know what Advaita means?
Non-dualism?
No. Means not.
Okay.
Dvaita means duality.
Okay.
Advaita means non-duality.
Okay.
Literal meaning of Advaita is non-duality.
Okay.
So what do you understand from it? What is your understanding at this moment about Advaita?
Oh. Maybe conceptually, but practically it's difficult for me to grasp. Practically.
No, there's no question. It's always, whatever you grasp, anybody grasp, is intellectual. It's an intellectual understanding. What is the intellectual understanding of Advaita? Non-duality.
That everything is one.
Yes, quite right. So what do you mean everything is one? What are you supposed to accept when you come to Advaita tells you everything is one?
Well, after hearing you yesterday, and then I bought one of your books and I was reading the introduction, and it makes sense to not. The only thing I can really control is my attitude.
Therefore, the one is the source.
Yes.
The unmanifest singularity or unmanifest unicity, which has become the manifested duality. The very basis of manifestation is duality, beginning with male and female, and every conceivable duality. Wealth and poverty, health and disease, good and evil, everything is interconnected. See what I mean? And the same unmanifest singularity has become the manifest duality. So the first question is, why should there be a manifestation at all? Why should there be a manifestation? And so many people suffering so much. Didn't God have anything better to do than create a manifested world like this with this suffering? It's a valid question, isn't it? What's the answer? The Advaita answer is that the one unicity was forced to become the dual manifested duality. That is, it is the nature of the one. That's what the Advaita says. It is the nature of the unmanifested to become. That is all they say. But I had to work it out. So how do I work it out? How do I understand it? I understand it, saying, if I consider the unmanifest unicity as pure potential energy, thus if I conceive of the source as the original potential energy, then I can easily understand. It is the nature of the potential. It is the very nature of the potential to activize itself sometime. Otherwise it wouldn't be potential. It would be dead matter. See what I mean? Therefore, if I conceive of the source as potential energy, then that potential energy had to activize itself sometime. Therefore, the Big Bang and the manifestation. And the manifestation, the basis of it is duality. And duality of every kind. If this basis of Advaita is understood, that the one unmanifest had to become the duality, and that the very basis of the manifestation and this functioning that we call life is duality. Every conceivable, as I said, good and evil. See, if I'm truly able to accept that, I wouldn't ask questions like, why did God create Hitler? Why did God create Osama bin Laden? More important, why does God create handicapped children, poor children? What have they done? Whom have they helped? Why does God create handicapped children? Answer is, God created Adolf Hitler and Osama bin Laden because he has also created Jesus Christ and Ramana Maharshi and Ramakrishna Paramhans and Saint Francis. God creates both good and evil. Why does God create handicapped children? Because God creates healthy children. You see, everything has its interconnected opposite.
Okay.
So if I accept that, an enormous kind of mental anguish disappears. enormous amount of mental anguish disappears. Such questions become useless.
How do I apply this to? I want to apply it like on a day-to-day living. And so about 3.5 years ago, I tried to teach in school, and I would go home.
You play what?
I tried to teach in the school.
In school. You
I was a
played.
teacher. Pardon me?
You played what?
Yeah, I failed.
Failed.
I feel like I failed. I left after 10 weeks. I was losing weight. I was going crazy. And when I would leave the school,
Yeah.
I was always just grinding through what I could have done better, what I did wrong,
Yes.
and I kind of drove myself crazy. Now I can stand back conceptually and I can look at that and I can say, oh, I did the best I could. But while I was in it, it drove me crazy.
That's why, quite frankly, people who felt the way you did and will feel are precisely supposed to feel that and feel pain. Why? Because they also have enjoyed sometimes. So pain and pleasure, again basic duality, pain and pleasure. How much pain, how much pleasure, nobody can know. And my concept is how much pain, how much pleasure. My concept is valid on what basis? My point is on the basis of God's will or cosmic law. What is the basis of God's will, cosmic law? The human brain is incapable of knowing something so vast and so complex. How can my brain know it? I told myself, my brain is incapable of knowing the theory of relativity. I am told by the scientists, at any moment, not more than 3 or 4 people are able to understand the theory of relativity in its real essence. So if my brain is incapable of understanding even the theory of relativity, how can I expect my brain to know the basis of the cosmic law, which concerns the entire universe for all time? Something so vast and so complex. My brain is not able to account, and I accept it. But religion, the Hindu religion and the Buddhist religion, people insisted, I want to know. So, the Hindu religion will, all right, I'll give you an answer. You are suffering in this life because you did something terrible in your previous life. That I understand. So therefore, do good in this life. My question to this is, I am told to be a good boy in this life, not to enjoy myself too much, restrict myself to this, and be frustrated. Why? So that some other ego in some other life is going to enjoy a good life because I stopped myself from enjoying myself. No deal. See, my point is, the ego who thinks he is doing anything in this life is meant only for this three-dimensional object, for this life. The ego cannot get formed because there is no ego. Ego is merely the belief that I am this individual, which is identified consciousness. Therefore, every ego is identified consciousness, which does not come with the body. The ego is, I think, scientifically proved, and I know practically, that the ego comes into the body-mind organism. This sense of me, individual, separate entity, only at the age of 2.5. I've seen children, talking about themselves in third person. She is afraid, meaning herself. She is afraid, he doesn't like it. And then when the ego takes over, then the ego realizes its strength and the child starts its tantrums, which make the parents run about. So the ego comes at the age of 2.5. It was not born with the body. And when, how long does it last? Only as long as the body lasts. So when the body is dead, that ego is no longer required according to the cosmic law. And then the identified consciousness again becomes impersonal consciousness. No one to do anything. Every action is a happening. So either I accept this and don't worry about any rebirth, or I accept I must be a good boy so that someone else can enjoy my being, my sacrifices of being a good. So it's a question of a concept of personal doership or no personal doership. Okay. So, from what you have heard, any question, Eric?
Well, I guess, do you just remind yourself, you just have to keep reminding yourself that you don't have the personal doership?
Eric, how often do you have to remind yourself that you are Eric, a male and not a female? How often do you have to remind yourself that you are a man and not a woman? There is no question of there it is. So when your acceptance of non-doership becomes as firm as the conviction that you are a man and not a woman, then there is no question of anybody reminding anyone about anything. And that has to happen only if it is supposed to happen. Yes, ma'am. Your name is?
I'm from Spain.
Spain. And your name is?
Patricia.
Patricia. Patricia.
Patricia.
Patricia, right?
Yes, that is.
What do you do in Spain? Do you have a vocation? Do you have a business or profession?
Yes, I have a business company that for air condition and calefactor system.
You work for a company like that?
It's my company.
Oh, it is your company. I see. I see. How do you mean your company? You own the company?
Yes, and with two more partners.
I see. I see, it's a partnership. I see. So what brought you here?
I have many friends in Spain who have come here, Fernando and other friends. And
Yes.
I read some of your book, Consciousness Talks, and when I read your book and when I talked to my friends who've been here, something happened inside of me, because all my life I've been thinking, I have believed real deep that I was the doer of everything I did. So I don't know what's happened, but inside of me now I have this deep feeling that I don't do anything. So in me, so I don't have to worry about anything. So I have this feeling, and I can feel that intelligence operates by me many times.
Now wait a minute. You don't have to worry about anything. It has nothing to do with your sense, whether you are a personal doer or not.
No, many times I don't worry, but there are.
No, my point is, the reason why you don't have to worry about anything, according to my concept, is that whatever is to happen at any time has already happened. The movie of life is already complete and in the can, and we are watching the movie, frame by frame by frame, but the whole movie is already there. So if the movie is already there, what is the use of worrying about what happened? So on that basis, you don't have to worry about what happened.
Yeah, that is.
Because whatever happened has already happened. That has nothing to do with the sense of personal doership.
Has already happened or is going to happen?
Well, has already happened in the movie. But since I don't know them, I haven't seen the movie before, I cannot know what happens in the movie.
Okay.
If we are watching a movie, the movie is already complete. It's in the can, it's being shown to us. So I don't, since I haven't seen the movie, I cannot know what happened. But it's already there. Like
According to my program.
No, what has happened is already happened. Therefore, over that, that is why if something is already, now if we are watching a movie, then what is the use of wishing something would happen in the movie? It's already happened.
Okay.
See what I mean? I'm watching a movie, I like so-and-so, I don't like so-and-so. But what's the use of wishing the person, I hope the person I like will be happy in the end. No use wishing it. It has already been there. So with that understanding, it's no use worrying what might happen. It's already happened. But that has nothing to do with doership.
So we shouldn't worry about anything because the movie has already happened, right?
That is the point. That is the point. And together with that is my total acceptance. It's impossible for any human being really to do anything because every human being fundamentally is only a three-dimensional object.
But on what depends that we shouldn't worry? Because if we worry, it's on my program to worry, no?
No, that is the point. So, if your genes and your conditioning are such that you are a worrier, then even knowing everything is predetermined, you'll keep on worrying.
Okay.
Because that is according to your gene, your nature is to worry, therefore you'll worry. But the understanding is, even if you worry about something or not worry, it's already happened. So to that extent, if you are a worrier, you will worry. But with that understanding, your worry will be much less.
So if the movie is already happened,
Yes, that is my concept.
we should just live life, right?
Therefore,
No?
no, wait a minute. Therefore, not you should live life well, but you should let life flow.
Okay. Yes, that is what I mean.
Let life flow.
Let life flow by this organism.
Let life flow the way it is supposed to flow, according to God's will, cosmic law. I can only watch what happens. And if I accept totally, whatever happens is precisely the way it is supposed to happen, according to God's will, cosmic law, then I don't judge anyone as a good person or a bad person. I don't judge someone as having done something wrong. I don't hate anyone. I don't admire anyone, because there is no one doing anything. So the most important point about accepting that no one is a doer is that you don't hate anyone. But on the other hand, there is a very, very good point involved, and that is, so if someone says, you mean to say something terrible happened, a terrorist kills 200 people, and I'm supposed to accept it? Valid point, isn't it? If I see on the TV what happened to 9/11, which my wife and I did. So what happened when I saw on the TV live the happening called 9/11, the two planes going into the twin towers, I was angry. Anger arose. Anger arose. Anger arose in this body-mind organism because my genes and conditioning, anger was supposed to arise in this body-mind organism. But I didn't say I was angry. Why? Because if I said I am angry, then I hate the person who did it. So anger arose, but I do not hate the person who did it. Why? Because he didn't do it. That was happening which had to happen through some body-mind organism according to their destiny, God's will, cosmic law. So if I see the happening as a happening, I don't hate anyone. But any happening could make anger arise, or fear arise, or surprise arise, or compassion arise. So my point is, when my eyes see something, ears hear something, nose smells something, the tongue tastes something, fingers touch something, there is an immediate biological reaction depending on my genes and conditioning, over which I have no control. So two of us see the same thing, our biological reaction may be different based on our respective programming, genes and conditioning. Therefore, according to my concept, no one gets angry, no one is afraid, no one is a compassionate man. Whether anger, fear or compassion arises is a happening which is supposed to happen. But that happening is based on this biological reaction over which the ego has no control. So, according to my biological genes and conditioning, certain things, when I see anger is likely to arise. But there again, the biological reaction, whether the biological reaction happens at a particular time, is again a happening over which I have no control. So first is a biological reaction over which I have no control. And two, whether the biological reaction happens at a time or does not happen, that also is not in my control. That is according to God's will, cosmic law. Therefore, anger may arise 9 times out of 10, but 10 times it may not arise. 9 times out of 10, fear may arise, but 10th time it may not arise. So whether the biological reaction happens or not is a happening according to the cosmic law. But the basis of it is the biological reaction, my genes and conditioning, over which I have no control. So if I accept whatever happens as a biological reaction, then there is no question of my hating anybody, because it's not his doing, nor giving credit to anybody. So the basis of this understanding is that now with that understanding, Patricia, how do you think I live my life? So basic, my point is, so far it hasn't come. What is my focal point? My focal point at any talk is quite simple. My focal point. What do I talk about? My focal point is, what does someone like us, reasonably comfortable in life, for which we have to be eternally grateful to God, and who has the common sense to know that the very basis of life is uncertainty. No one can know what the next moment will bring, pleasure or pain. So in these circumstances, and no one can know the total amount of pleasure and pain each one of us is supposed to experience in life. That is the basic fact of life. Uncertainty is the very basis of life. So with this understanding, my focal point is, what does each of us, any of us, want most in life is happiness. That is what I talk about. So, for the newborn baby, seeking its mother's breast for milk is happiness. The baby grows into a child. For the school-going child, happiness means love from the parents, success in the classroom, success in the playing field. That is happiness. Then the child grows into an adult, and the adult decides. Happiness means more and more pleasure, less and less pain. So that an adult, almost anywhere at any time, pursues pleasure, mistaking it as happiness. And most people pursue pleasure and they don't get it. They live a frustrated life and they die a frustrated death. But among those who have started pursuing pleasure with the mistaken notion that they are pursuing happiness, a few people, God's favorites, like us, we suddenly realize at some point, I know what pleasure is. I know there are pleasures which I have not enjoyed. But even if I have enjoyed all kinds of pleasure, I still have the feeling that I am not happy. Therefore, for us who are seeking happiness and come to realize that my happiness which I am seeking does not lie in the pleasures of life. Therefore, the happiness I am seeking does not lie in the flow of life. Flow of life can only mean pleasure or pain. Therefore, the most important conclusion each of us has to come to is, the happiness I am seeking is not to be found in the flow of life, but in my attitude to life. The next question I have to find out is, what do I mean by attitude to life? 2 bars. Then I came to the conclusion. Various answers I threw out, and the only answer I accepted was, my attitude to life can only mean my attitude towards the other, from morning till night. What does attitude to life mean? My relationship with the other, my attitude towards the other. So my next question was, what has been my attitude towards the other so far, which has not brought me the happiness? Then I realized that the basis of my relationship with the other has been suspicion, rivalry, fear. That is why I don't have the happiness. Therefore, I have to come to the conclusion that my happiness therefore depends on a harmonious relationship with the other. Unless I have a harmonious relationship with the other, I cannot be happy. And then I have to come to the conclusion that the only way I can have a harmonious relationship with the other so that I can be happy. The only way I can be happy is if I have a harmonious relationship with the other. And the only way I can have a harmonious relationship with the other is if I am not afraid, if I don't fear him, that he may do me some harm. And the only way I can accept that I don't have to fear him is if I am able to accept totally He is incapable of harming me because he is incapable of doing anything. He is only a three-dimensional object. We are both three-dimensional objects. Therefore, neither me nor the other can harm anybody, even if we want to. Therefore, the only way I can be happy is if I have a harmonious relationship with the other. And the only way I can have a harmonious relationship with the other is if I am able to accept totally I am incapable of doing anything because I am a three-dimensional object. How can a three-dimensional object? Similarly, the other cannot harm me. I cannot harm the other person can. We are both three-dimensional objects through which life is happening, precisely the way it is supposed to happen, according to God's will, cosmic law. The human being is incapable of doing anything. And that is my concept about enlightenment. What is enlightenment? According to me, enlightenment means the total acceptance of the concept. Everything in life is a happening according to God's will, cosmic law. How each happening affects whom, better or worse, is again according to God's will, cosmic law. And through which person, through which body, mind, organism a happening happens, which the society calls my action or your action or her action, is again according to God's will, cosmic law. The human being is incapable of doing anything. According to my concept, total acceptance of that means enlightenment or self-realization. And the more important point, what for you to want to know is, all right, this is this is enlightenment. What has enlightenment done for me? Which is the real important point. And the answer is the total acceptance of this concept, which for me is enlightenment, has meant that I don't consider myself having done any wrong. I am incapable of doing it, so that I don't hate myself and I don't hate the other. An absence of hatred is precisely the happiness I've been looking for. Therefore, the happiness is not something positive, but the happiness every human being is seeking is negative, the absence of suffering. What is the suffering? Hatred for myself for what I have done, hatred for the other for what they have done. So strictly, the happiness we are all looking for is merely the absence of suffering. Absence of suffering which we have created for ourselves by believing that we are the doers and the others are the doers. Once we totally accept no one is a doer, then the suffering by way of hatred for oneself, they disappear. And the absence of that suffering, absence of that hatred, means the presence of peace of mind, happiness through peace of mind. And that is what every human being is seeking without knowing it. Okay?
Yes, I have one more question.
Please, please. Please, Patricia, please.
Maybe it's my mind that can't understand, no? But I want to ask this question. I mean, if each instant of our lives is already happened,
Yes. Yes.
my mind can understand why my program in the movie is not to have harmony in the relationships. For instance, that.
Because for a simple reason.
But what is the meaning of? I mean, and if I feel suffer, I feel angry, I don't decide to be happy, not to feel the suffer and
Therefore,
the reaction for
yes.
suffering.
So when we see a movie, why do we see a movie? Why do we see a movie, Patricia? If everybody was a nice person, everybody is happy, who would go and see any movie? Who would go
Okay.
and see any movie if everything is beautiful? I would rather stay home and see the movie of life, which contains a lot of more excitement.
Okay.
Then that is why the basis of daily living, the basis of this movie of life is duality of every conceivable kind, beginning with male and female. Male and female, beautiful and ugly, wealth and poverty, health and disease, good and evil, both have existed at the same time. And that is the basis of any movie. Otherwise, nobody would go and see a movie. What is the basis of any movie? Good and bad, beautiful and ugly. That's why we see the movie. And that is the basis of this movie of life.
Sometimes it's not a funny movie.
Yeah.
At least for the ego that it thinks
Now
is the doer.
Now wait a minute.
Yes.
Supposing you wanted, that means you say, I want to see a funny movie. Now, if every movie that you see is a funny movie,
No.
how long will you go and see the movie?
Okay.
You will get tired even of the funny movie. Because all the time funny movie, there is no duality. Therefore, you want to see in the movie, something is funny, something is sad, something is funny, something is not funny.
And it's the same.
And that is the basis of everything. That is the basis of daily living. Interconnected opposites. Always. Pain or pleasure.
It's the same. Okay, yes.
And most of the things happening can be divided either into one or the other. Pain or pleasure. Comfort and discomfort. Whatever we call it. Okay? So, any question?
No, so now I shouldn't worry for anything.
That is the
The
whole...
movie is on, so I can't decide anything.
Yes. So,
So,
therefore,
why to worry?
Wait a minute. So, with that understanding, you can't help worry arising according to your genes and conditioning. See what I mean?
Yes, yes.
But what happens? The worry arises because of your genes and conditioning, and then the understanding arises and cuts off the worry.
Yes, that's my way of living. Many times I watch myself that I think I'm the doer, and suddenly something arises and I just realize that is the movie, that
That
the movie
is the
already
point.
done. But I
Therefore-
live this moment, that
And
I think many times I really believe I am the doer, and
Yeah.
suddenly something arises, and then I go back and just say, it's just the movie, it's not me.
So technically, what am I saying? What I'm saying is that involvement happens, worry may happen, anger may arise and you think you are angry, but then promptly the understanding arises and cuts off the involvement.
Yes, that is.
You are describing just that.
Yes, that is what it is.
Therefore, even it has this understanding that everything has happened, you are not the doer, is what is necessary to cut off the happening of that worry. You can't prevent, what I am saying is you can't prevent the worry from happening.
Because I can decide the understanding happen, because the understanding happens by itself,
That
arises
is-
by itself.
again-
I don't decide to happen.
Again, that
I'm
is
sure
correct.
that I don't do anything for the understanding to happen. So just leave the movie, nothing else.
So therefore, the whole final understanding is that there is nothing I can do
Okay, yeah.
to make the intellectual understanding total understanding.
It's limited.
It will happen only if it is supposed to happen.
Okay.
See, that is the understanding. But then a valid question arises, Patricia, and that is, while I am waiting for God to make up His mind, whether I shall have the total understanding or not, over which I have no control, I accept. But while I am waiting, is there not something I can do to pass time? I think it's a valid question, and I have a suggestion. This personal investigation is extraordinarily simple, and you can do it any time. If you have the time during the day, you can do it any time.
No, but it doesn't depend if I have time or not, because I don't decide also to have time. So there's nothing I can decide, right?
Therefore, if you don't have time during the day,
But I don't know if I am going to have time, because I don't decide that also, right?
I know, so either
So
you have time or you don't have time. Either you have
If in my
time.
program is having time, I will
There.
have an inquiry. Okay,
In
that's
that
right.
case-
It doesn't depend on me.
In that case, if time, you have the time, you can do it any time.
Yes.
But if you don't have the time, then what I suggest is at the end of the day, take 10 minutes off, sit quietly, be comfortable, take the most comfortable seat you have. And in order to be comfortable, if you would like your glass of sherry or anything, or a cup of coffee, have it. My point, be comfortable. This is not a discipline.
No, not
Because
at all.
all disciplines are done by an individual with a view to getting something.
In my way, I don't.
So this is not a discipline. Be comfortable and then do some very simple, what I call personal investigation. From the many events of the day, most of which you can understand, they're just happenings. They just happen. I was part of the happening. Choose one happening, one action which Patricia is sure is her action. Just one action. Other actions, I don't know. But this one is my action, and I challenge anybody to prove to me that it is not my action. See? And then do some personal investigation. Very simple. If I consider this action as my action, did I decide to do that action at a particular time?
No. No,
Then-
I don't decide to live in.
Then you investigate how did the action happen. And you remember you had a thought. If the thought had not happened, your action would not have happened. The thought itself became the action. Therefore, you are not the doer. And when you have done this investigation yourself and come to the conclusion that the one action you were so sure your action turns out on your own investigation not to be your action, then your understanding goes considerably deeper. And you can investigate any number of actions, and I assure you, every single time, without exception, you will keep on coming to the conclusion, not my action, not my action. And each time the understanding goes deeper and deeper. If I had not happened to be at a certain place and time and seen something, my action would not have happened. If I had not happened to be at a certain place and time, seen something or heard something or smelled something or tasted something or touched, my action would not have happened. And I had no control over being at a particular place at a particular time. Much more important for something to happen, which I happen to see, hear, smell, taste or touch. Time after time, not my action, not my action. And the understanding keeps on going deeper until at a particular moment of time, depending on your destiny, God's will, cosmic law, a divine flash of total acceptance is likely to happen. I simply cannot be the doer. And when that flash happens, no more doubts will remain. And that flash can happen anytime, anywhere. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Right. So, Yamurti. Yes, come.
Create any doing without the wanting of a result. You say you just said that inquiry happens by itself.
No. So therefore the first point is did I decide to do that action at a particular time? If you had decided, then it was your action. But there is no action, Jaya, which Jaya decides to do. It is usually the result. Either a thought happens, or you see something or hear something, and that leads to your action. A thought happens, or you see something or hear something. That leads to what you call your action. You know, Ramana Maharshi once said, everything is predetermined. Then someone raised his arm, and he said, surely I have raised my arm. Was that also predetermined? Ramana Maharshi said, yes. That means it's not your action. And there it stopped. But if that had happened to me, he would have said, but I raised my hand. So what is the answer? The answer is, you raised your arm. You did not decide to raise your arm when you did. You raised your arm because you heard me say that everything is predetermined. If Ramana Maharshi had not said everything is predetermined, that man would not have raised his arm. So did he raise his arm? Or did his arm get raised? Because he heard Ramana Maharshi say something. Therefore, any action that happens is the result of either a thought happening, or you are seeing something, or hearing something, smelling, tasting, or touching something. For the simple reason, how can a three-dimensional object decide to do anything?
So Ramesh, when you encourage to say, you say you have the free will to do anything to release your pain. You have that free will.
Total free will.
And at the same time you say any one thing is as expectation with it. How is it possible to your willing without wanting anything in result?
No. Point is, in any situation, you are free to do whatever you want. Only point is, having done it, if you remember that the result has never been in your control, you will do whatever you wish to do, but not expect anything. That is the whole point.
That's the whole point.
Therefore, if you do something and expect something, you will be frustrated. Therefore, simple living is doing whatever you want to, and just wait and see what happens without expectation. Without expectation, that is the point. Wanting something is, you can't help it, but expectation is the problem. Wanting something is no problem. Doing something is no problem. Expecting something is the problem.
Yeah, so each time you tell, I hear you telling me that I have the free will to do anything I want to release the pain.
But it is worthless in practice because you have no control over the result. That is the basic fact of life. Two basic facts of life. I am free to do anything I want. Fact number two, the result of it has never been in my control. Therefore, my free will is worthless in practice. I do have free will, but it's worthless in practice.
So even if I hear you telling that, and if I do it, it's just an happening, in fact.
Yes, it was supposed to happen. And the result of it, the society will decide your action, good or bad, reward you or punish you, pleasure or pain.
Because all this last years, each time I've kind of focused on something I decide to do to release pain. In fact, sometimes there has been some kind of illusion or something going better, and it had ended up in more frustration.
Yes. Therefore, what you are saying is, if there is pain, I want that pain to be removed.
Yeah.
If there is pleasure, I want that pleasure to always remain.
Yeah.
That is the wanting.
Yes.
But therefore wanting it, you are free to do at any time whatever you feel like doing, to increase your pleasure or reduce your pain. But the result has never been in your control.
That is to accept.
That's the whole point.
And it only comes when it's destined to happen.
That is correct. Total acceptance will happen only if and when it is supposed to happen.
And with that impatience you are witnessing that's coming from your genes, in your personal body-mind organism, after the total understanding, I would think that it would decrease or somehow change.
Yeah, it does decrease.
Yeah.
The frequency is less, the intensity is less. But I can't say it doesn't happen.
Yeah, there's not like some kind of a sudden change that now impatience has gone.
It can't, because I can't do anything about my genes and conditioning.
Yeah. So the ideas about, with the understanding, some great change about our psychological characteristic is an illusion. Or sometimes it can happen in some ways.
No, that is why I keep saying, enlightenment, I confess that I am enlightened, or enlightenment has happened, but I still cannot do anything about the pain I have to suffer. With the understanding, my experience has been that the psychological pain, the frequency of the psychological pain and the intensity of the psychology have been reduced. That's all.
Yeah,
but I cannot prevent physical or psychological pain from arising. But I am free to do whatever I like to reduce both physical pain and psychological pain. But the result has never been in my control.
And I have a little last question.
Go ahead.
In the pink booklet, you said that real fulfillment comes by giving. You realize that real fulfillment comes by giving. And in the same time, you said that miser is in the genes. So can a mother cannot be fulfilled?
Yes. A miser will suddenly find himself giving and then regretting it. But even a miser will say, and he gives it. Next moment, I wish I had not given it. But the giving has already happened as a happening over which the miser had no control.
So a man of understanding could even stay with the same genes, like to be a miser?
Oh, indeed. Indeed. But with the understanding, the miserliness will become gradually less and less.
Less and less.
But it may not.
It may not.
Therefore, in general, if impatience is part of my gene, impatience is likely to happen. So miserliness is likely to happen. But each happening is a happening according to God's will, cosmic law, and not my doing. Yeah, Murthy.